Hello, welcome to this video. This one's going to be another Too Tall Toby model. Actually, it's going to be one of his more difficult models. And as I was studying this and going through trying to create it and coming up with the wrong answers, it reminded me of another model that I had done some time ago. And it was actually, except for the material being ABS and a different mass, it's the same model that he had back in October during the competition. I think it was on either October 23rd or 28th. I can't recall exactly which. But anyway, it's the same model, same dimensions, and the only thing he changed was, of course, the title and the material. So let me go over this. When I first tried this, I couldn't remember how I did the original model. It worked out fine for me, but what I come to remember is that this part of the model right here is actually working off between two planes here at an angle. One coming off this point at 4 1/4, and then the other one is 1 5/8 offset from there. So with that, I decided I'd try a different tack on how to model this. So let me go through those steps with you and show you how I accomplished this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my base sketch here on the ZX plane. Let me orient this face, and I'm just going to throw some lines out here. And this front line on the right hand side here, I'm going to make that midpoint on the origin, and then dimension that at the 2 3/8, 2.375, and then the other two lines, make sure this is vertical. Now this is a trick that I've picked up some time ago, that when I have to put a tangent arc between two lines, I generally just sketch the two lines and then come back in and put it in a fillet with the appropriate value. So here is 0.625, and what that does is it puts tangents on those two arcs and saves me the step of having to reapply tangents that don't get applied there. The next thing is that it turns out on the drawing that the dimension here is 2 3/8 between the arc center and the fillet centers, which means this line is 2 3/8, the same as this line in the front. So what I'm going to do here is apply an equal constraint between this line and this line, and then using Ex Machina's trick of using midpoint between points, I'll select my two center points there and the origin, and that centers up that part there. And then I have a dimension from here to the center. Get the right dimension from this arc to that line is 5 inches. And that completes the base. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and put in the two holes here at 0.5 on those center points. And then extrude that. And that extrusion is 0.25. So that completes the base plate. The next thing I'm going to do is going to create a sketch on the following this pattern right here. I'm going to have a line 2.875 and then another line at 15 degrees at a length of 4 1/4. And that's going to help me define and establish this working plane on the back face of this tombstone feature. So let me start the sketch here on the XY plane. And we'll just draw that out, and then I'm going to make this endpoint horizontal to the origin, and I'm going to make it coincident to this edge of the end part. And then I'm going to have this at 15 degrees. And then I've got 2.875 and 4 1/4 for the line lengths. So this is going to be 2.875, and this line is 4.25. Okay, now here's the helper that's going to, the points that are going to help me get this plane established here. So if I go into Insert Sketch or Insert Plane, and it's going to put us, apply a plane on this sketch line. So I'm just going to pull this all the way along, and notice how this plane traverses along the sketch all the way to the far end. At 100%, it's at the far end here of that 4 1/4 inch line. And click Apply. Now I'll go back in and edit this sketch. The next thing I want to do is I want to put an axis on there. So if I insert an axis from either the menu or the ribbon, if I select, clear that, get back here, I'll have to edit that from the, enter that from the insert from sketch. So I click on this icon and I'll select this line, and what it's going to do is lay an axis on that line. And then I can deactivate, and let me turn on my, let me roll this ahead here now. So now I've got a plane, an axis. The next thing I need is, which will come evident later, is I'm going to put another axis in here between this plane and this face, and that gives me the intersection of this plane and that face. Next thing is going to I'm going to insert another plane. It's going to be an offset plane 1.625. And I'll close that and add another axis between this new plane and this face to find the intersection of those two surfaces, or plane and surface. Now I'm going to sketch on this extended plane, and here I'm going to just draw out a rough triangle here, and I'm going to make this line coincident to that axis, and then I'm going to make sure that these 2 points are midpoint centered on the origin. And then while I'm here, I'm going to fillet these 2 lines at 0.5. So apply that, and then I'm going to make a coincident between the arc center and the origin. Now we still need to figure out what the length of these line here and the angle there is on these 2 lines. Now this first axis we put in here is going to define the bottom of the back face. It's going to define this line here on the model. So what I'm going to do is going to project this axis as a reference figure and maintain association. And now I've got a line here that's going to represent the back corner, bottom edge of that tombstone. But I can't measure that until I apply another reference line. So if I do a reference line here, and as I get up close to the corner here, the intersection, notice that by the cursor there becomes a little X symbol there. That's the intersection constraint that I'm going to click and apply it there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Click and apply. And now I've got a line that I can dimension. Not that line. Actually, I'm going to go to point to point, and here I'm going to key in 1.5, and that's the length of that baseline. That's as this extrudes now to this surface. That's the bottom edge at 1.5 inches. So now, one more thing here. This needs a hole in the middle. So on the origin, I'm going to put a circle in here so that I can define this round hole that's going through there, and that's a 1/2 inch through hole. So let me put a 1/2 inch hole there, and now here I'm going to extrude, and I can either key in my value 1.625, or I can go to geometry and select this back plane, and that creates my part. But it also extends out through the bottom of the model. So if you happen to have the option to remove face, click on remove face and come in here and select the faces of these of that extension, and it cleans it right up. The alternative to that would be to start a sketch on the XY plane, draw a rectangle around that, constrain it to this edge of the base plate, and do an extrude cut to remove it. So now with this keystone feature completed, I can go ahead and turn off the visibility of that plane and that plane, just to clean up the view a little bit. Now to define and create these side tabs here, note that it says that this is merged at this corner point of the model. So what I'm going to do is come in here, I'm going to insert a plane, select the XY plane, and I'm going to make that plane coincident to this vertex of the model, and click OK on that. And now on this plane, I'll start a new sketch, and we'll sketch in some lines here, and these are going to be at an angle, so we'll just kind of roughly just rough them in a little bit. And I'm going to make this bottom line making that collinear with the bottom face or bottom edge. And then this back line here, that needs to be parallel to that face, so I'm going to do a parallel from this face or this line to this edge. And while I'm here, this is going to be actually like 0.25 dimension. Now this line is going to become the center, so I change that to a construction line, and I'm going to put an arc on this line. And now this line has to be aligned with the axis of this through hole, sir. So I'm going to use another collinear constraint between this line and the axis, and that's going to define the height and angle of that face, or this tombstone feature. Need a coincident from this point to the corner. I need a dimension here, which is going to be the diameter of 1.25, and then I need a dimension from this point to here, 0.875, and I need a couple of constraints here for this. I need perpendicular from this line to this line, and that fully constrains this tab, or this side of the part. One more thing to add here is a hole right in the middle here. That hole is going to be 0.75, or this circle is anyway. And then I'll extrude that at 0.25, and that completes that part. So now I've got this shape defined, I'm going to go ahead and add the boss up here for this extended thickness on around the mounting hole. So I'm going to start a sketch on this face, and the first thing I'm going to do is going to convert or project with maintain associativity that circle on the inside, and then using that center point, put another circle in here, and I'll use a co-radial constraint to make it the same radius as this arc. And then I'll do an extrusion on here. And then using the same technique that Ex Machina used on his video, and I'll leave a link to that down below, he did a dual depth constraint on this part. And the idea is that we don't know what the extension is on this side of this wall, and we don't know what the extension is on the opposite side of the wall, but we do know the distance between this surface and this surface is 2.25 or 2.5, and between the two of them we have 1.5 inches. So the thing to remember with the dual depth feature here is that the first dialog box is the value for the extension on the plus side or positive direction of the plane or face, and the bottom dialog is the extension or direction on the negative side of your plane or face. So for the first extension, we're going to take the 2.5, and we're going to subtract the 2 3/8, which is the face we're working on, and we're going to subtract that 2 3/8 from the 2.5, divide it by half, divide by 2, and use that value. So 2.5 minus 2.375, divide that by 2, and that gives us the extension on the front. Now on the back half, we have our 2 3/8, and we're going to subtract our 1.5 and divide that by 2 to get this extension from this surface to the back face. So we have, again, we'll key in our 2.375 minus 1.5 and divide that by 2. Hit tab, and now we have the extension on the back side, and we'll OK that, and then we'll hit mirror. That extension's already highlighted. We'll select this dog ear, select our mirror plane, and we're OK there. Now just to check it here, on the outside edges, outside faces, we're at 2.5. We have 2.5, and we should have 1.5 on the inside. So if we measure on the inside, we have 1.5. And while we're here, let's just check our back edge here, and down on our feed out here, we got 1.5 inches on our back. Now the last thing to do is to fill in the gap in between here, and that's going to be just a simple sketch on this face, and I'll catch the rectangle by 3 corners and rough it in, and then go in here with some collinear constraints, top edge to top edge and side to side, and I'll just do a coincident from this point to that edge, and then dimension this at 0.25, and then we'll extend that to geometry. We'll select that face, and now we're capped off inside, and we're done. And then we'll have material. Our material is going to be plain carbon steel. So we hit plain carbon steel, and let's see what we end up with a mass. hit calculate, and we're at 2.63, which is the mass that we're looking for on this part. So anyway, that's the end result of what I puzzled through several hours trying to figure out how to create this tombstone feature. And between the time I created this first one here with ABS, and I did end up with a correct mass of 0.344, but I'd forgotten how I created this tombstone. And after I went back and reviewed the model, I was able to figure out how I went through these steps to get that using these offset planes and using the initial sketch. Let me using this sketch that defines the distance offset from the end and the angle to define my axis, or my angle for the axis, and the position of my plane for the back face of the part, and then building off of that to complete it. So hope this little model helps you out. So see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.